Kathy Stanek Cousins was a 27-year-old woman trapped in a loveless marriage.
She felt tied down. She just didn't want to be married anymore.
Until she took comfort in the arms of her handsome next-door neighbor, Tim Coyle.
She thought Tim could be the knight in shining armor.
Their mutual attraction quickly sparked an obsessive affair.
The relationship was very hot and sensual.
They were madly in love.
But the lovers' neighborhood fling would ultimately lead to tragedy.
The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
Now, go behind the scenes with detectives as they search for clues and expose the ugly truth behind a suburban sex scandal fueled by more than just passion.
This was all about money and greed.
I couldn't get my mind wrapped around it. I thought this stuff only happened in the movies.
May 9th, 2001. It was a peaceful spring morning in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, when police received a frantic call from a local woman named Kathy Stanek Cousins, who told them her husband Sean was missing.
The report given by Mrs. Cousin was that she hadn't seen her husband in several days.
Kathy told them that Sean was a pilot for Jamaica Airlines and had been scheduled for a flight 2 days ago. But he never checked in.
He hadn't shown up for work, which is very unusual.
He misses a flight, and that's kind of a problem when you're a pilot.
Kathy explained that she and Sean had gotten into a fight the night before he was supposed to fly. So when he stormed out of the house, she assumed he was simply going to the airport.
According to her, he walked out. That was the last time she saw him. She thought that, okay, he took off and he's going to go straight to Miami to make his flight.
However, Kathy told police that when she checked their closet, she found that he'd left his uniform and passport behind. Kathy said Sean had been suffering from depression, so when almost 48 hours passed without hearing from him, she was afraid something bad might have happened. A fear that grew when Kathy discovered something else that was missing.
When Sean left the house, he took the cash from his last paycheck and Kathy's .45 pistol.
Investigators wondered if Sean Cousins was planning to take his own life. Was it possible that he was still alive? And if he was, where was he? Kathy Stanek was born in Chicago, Illinois, to loving parents. Growing up, Kathy was an inquisitive child who craved adventure. And her first opportunity to travel would come when her family relocated to sunny Palm Beach, Florida. But the city's beaches and nightlife weren't enough for young Kathy. She wanted to see more of the world. And she finally got a chance to satisfy her wanderlust after high school, when she landed a job as a flight attendant for Jamaica Airlines.
Air Jamaica at the time was a huge and popular airline in South Florida. Pilots often, they were really well paid.
And it didn't take Kathy long to catch the eye of one of the airline's handsome young pilots, 29-year-old Sean Cousins.
Sean was this good-looking guy in a pilot's uniform, flying to Jamaica every week and making a lot of money doing it.
She was a beautiful woman. He was attracted to her intensely, and, you know, their relationship started.
Kathy and Sean felt an instant connection that quickly led to romance. There was only one problem. Sean was a married man.
He told Kathy his marriage was basically over, but that it was a complicated situation.
He may have been in the process of divorce, but he wasn't just free. He had 5 children.
Although Kathy knew the adulterous affair was wrong, she'd already fallen in love with Sean and took him at his word that he was in the process of a divorce. As far as she was concerned, she'd met the man of her dreams and was willing to do anything to be with him.
This man seemed like a dream come true. He was a pilot. He probably talked about all his travels, and she felt she was going to have a life of adventure and excitement.
Kathy's persistence eventually paid off. After a few years of seeing each other in secret, Sean's divorce was finalized. He and Kathy were married days later.
Once Sean decided he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Kathy, he didn't waste any time getting started.
And the newlyweds began their new life together in style. Sean bought Kathy an expensive home in the gated community of Palm Beach Gardens. Sean's salary meant Kathy no longer had to work full-time as a flight attendant. Instead, she took a job at a flower shop, planning to travel with Sean whenever his schedule allowed.
There's some glamour in that life, and your spouse is going to great cities, but she wasn't going with him all the time, obviously.
But Kathy soon discovered that being a pilot's wife wasn't everything she'd hoped it would be.
The reality set in that she was alone a lot. He's traveling, she's by herself. It wasn't this romantic picture that she had at the beginning.
Kathy found herself spending most of her time alone and lonely. And whenever Sean did come home, it seemed all he wanted from Kathy was quick sex before he left again on another trip. All of the romance had completely drained out of their relationship.
Kathy was feeling neglected and by myself, and I'm lonely, and maybe she's feeling not pretty enough anymore.
Kathy began to resent the way Sean was treating her, but she wasn't quite ready to give up the life of privilege being a pilot's wife provided.
She felt trapped in a marriage where she couldn't get out of it. She wanted to go out and have a good time.
Kathy didn't know what she was going to do, but in the meantime, she was in desperate need of love, affection, and most of all, excitement. And she would find all three in the strong arms of her handsome next-door neighbor. Timothy Coyle was a 34-year-old cable company employee from Chicago, Illinois, who'd relocated to Palm Beach with his wife, Deborah, a few months before.
My mom moved 5 minutes away from us, and we just kind of like had a nice little family and relationship going.
But that would all change when Sean and Kathy Cousins moved in across the street. The two young couples quickly discovered they had a lot in common.
They invited us over to have drinks by the pool, and they grilled, or they would come and, over to our house, just neighbors once in a while getting together.
But with Sean's frequent flights taking him away from home, Kathy spent more and more time alone with their new friends.
Kathy goes over there when Sean's away and gets to know Tim and his wife.
Kathy immediately liked Tim. He was handsome and funny, and he was incredibly charming. It wasn't long before Kathy realized she had a crush on her new neighbor, though she tried her best to ignore it. But Kathy was also bored and lonesome, feeling she couldn't help but share with Tim and Deborah one night over wine.
She proceeds to tell them just how lonely she is in that house all by herself.
Kathy confessed she felt scared to be left home alone, sometimes for days at a time, while Sean was on a trip. So being a good neighbor, Tim made Kathy a friendly offer.
Tim said, well, if you ever need anything, if something happens, you could always just, call us. We're right across the street.
But as the night wore on, Kathy noticed the way Tim was watching her, and she began to suspect there was more to his offer than just a neighborly gesture, even though Tim's wife didn't pick up on the signals.
I guess I was really naive because I didn't suspect anything was going on. I was so in denial. I didn't want to believe that was happening.
After that night, Kathy couldn't stop thinking about Tim. And a few days later, when his wife was running errands, Kathy took Tim up on his offer to keep her company. Once they were alone, neither could resist the temptation to give in to the passion they both felt for one another. But one stolen afternoon of lust wouldn't be enough. Kathy and Tim began having an impassioned affair. But the couple's bond wasn't just sexual. Kathy was becoming obsessed with Tim. Unlike Sean, Tim made Kathy feel both wanted and needed.
She had this neighbor flattering her, and she found that exciting. That was the appeal.
I mean, how sexy does that sound? You know, she has this great guy who's always there for her. He's not flying away like her husband.
Tim was just as consumed with Kathy, and living right next door, the lovers were able to continue their clandestine love affair, with his wife none the wiser.
They live across the street. He could go there and come home again, and his wife might not even realize where he's been.
However, keeping the affair a secret from Kathy's husband, Sean, was a different story. After getting the affection and excitement she'd been missing with Sean, Kathy couldn't bring herself to have sex with him anymore. And after Kathy turned him down a few times, Sean became suspicious.
At some point, he thought maybe she was having an affair. He got some signs, he got suspicious, and he was probably hoping that it was false.
So one morning, Sean decided to put his theory to the test. He lied to Kathy about his schedule and told her he was leaving on a flight. A couple of hours later, he returned home to find her in the arms of her lover, Tim Coyle.
He popped up unexpectedly, and there she was with the neighbor.
Coming up, investigators wonder whether finding out about his wife's affair had driven Sean to take desperate action.
They've got to be wondering if his talk about suicide wasn't just talk after all.
And as the search for the missing pilot continues, police make a disturbing discovery.
A body was found in an isolated part of Osceola County in a creek.
Kathy Stanek Cousins was a desperate housewife struggling with the lonely reality of being married to a pilot, until she found solace in the arms of her handsome and charming next-door neighbor, Tim Coyle.
The relationship was very hot and sensual. The sex was exciting.
But their secret affair had been overshadowed by the sudden disappearance of Kathy's husband, Sean. Sean had been scheduled for a flight, but he'd never checked in. And after 48 hours passed with no sign of Sean, Kathy had called the Palm Beach Police Department to file a missing persons report. Kathy explained that her marriage to Sean had been in trouble for months. His prolonged absences had caused them to grow apart, and whenever he came home, they'd wind up getting into a fight.
Their fights were usually about sex. He'd show up and want her to put out, and she expected intimacy.
I'm not a let's have sex with you kind of person. I'd rather much more make love. I was going to feel like a prostitute with my husband.
And Kathy said the problem in their marriage only got worse when Sean found out she'd been having an affair.
He popped up unexpectedly, and there she was with the neighbor. He saw enough to get furious.
Kathy told police she felt terrible about cheating on her husband and immediately ended the affair with Tim. She wanted to reconcile with Sean, and the two of them promised to work on their relationship.
He hands me a note. I realize what I've done to you, and I realize I've mistreated you. I realize I've been not there for you. I love you. I need you. I can't live without you.
But fixing their marriage was easier said than done. Sean's sexual demands continued to make Kathy feel used, and no matter how hard she tried to please him, he didn't trust her not to cheat on him again. Kathy said things had built up to another big fight the Friday before Sean disappeared.
If he doesn't get his gratification through the sex, then you better look out, because the whole world's in trouble if he starts arguing, yelling, screaming, whatever.
Kathy said their fight continued the rest of the weekend, until things finally came to a head on Monday night, and his mood swung suddenly from anger to depression.
And he starts bitching and moaning about how he can't live this way. I don't want him. He doesn't want to be alive.
Kathy told police that Sean stormed out of the house, and she didn't hear from him again until he called around 1:30 a.m.
Sean tells Kathy if she won't take care of him, he's going to find somebody who will.
He goes, I'm going to find a girl in the bar, and if not, I'll go pay a prostitute. I said, okay, and he hung up on me.
Kathy said she hadn't thought much of her husband's threats at the time. Sean had often said things just to upset her. But when she found out that Sean never showed up for his flight the next morning, she realized something was wrong. Kathy said she called Sean's ex-wife and family, hoping they'd heard from him, but they were just as worried as she was.
They had not heard from him, which was unusual. Even when he goes away on trips, he would touch base with them.
At this point, they're wondering if something happened to him.
And when Kathy discovered that Sean had taken one of their handguns with him, she was afraid he might be intending to take his own life.
When Sean left the house, he took Kathy's .45 pistol. They've got to be wondering if his talk about suicide wasn't just talk after all.
Palm Beach police put out a bolo alert for Sean Cousins. Sean's loved ones prayed he was just in a hotel somewhere recovering from his fight with Kathy. But a call from Osceola County Police would confirm their worst fears. On May 11, a teenage boy was working on a highway road crew in rural Osceola County, Florida. Deciding to take a break, the teen broke off from the crew and walked down an embankment to a nearby creek, where he noticed something floating in the water. It was the body of a man.
He was face down in the water, arms extended out.
Horrified, the teen immediately called 911, and Osceola County sheriffs rushed to the scene. The body belonged to an unidentified middle-aged man, and from the state of decomposition, it appeared he had been floating in the creek for several days.
His shirt tail was neatly tucked in. Didn't seem like he was any kind of struggle. So we were thinking maybe one of the locals fell in the water, possibly drowned.
But it was soon clear that the victim's death had been anything but accidental.
The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
The body was so badly mangled that police believed at first that they would not be able to make a positive identification. But when investigators searched the man's clothes, they found a wallet containing a driver's license and credit cards.
The driver's license found on the body belonged to 34-year-old Sean Cousins.
When he run his driver's license, we find out he is a missing person out of Palm Beach County.
When the Osceola County sheriffs contacted Palm Beach detectives, they learned that Sean was last seen leaving his home 4 days earlier, on his way to Miami, an hour south of Palm Beach. And from the gunshot wound to his head, it appeared Sean may have followed through on his suicide threat after all.
Maybe he decides to drive out in the middle of nowhere and shoot himself.
Kathy was devastated by the news of her husband's death. But what neither she nor detectives could understand was why would Sean go all the way out to rural Osceola County to kill himself?
It's 100 miles away from where he said he was. He could have driven there, but where's his car?
With little else to go on, detectives hoped an autopsy might shed some more light on what happened to Sean. And in addition to the bullet wound found in Sean's head, the medical examiner discovered something that investigators on the scene hadn't noticed.
As the coroner is examining the body, she notices a second bullet wound in Sean's back.
Which meant Sean's death wasn't a suicide, it was murder. Coming up, investigators learned that Kathy and Sean's marriage was in more trouble than Kathy let on.
Numerous times the family would say that they would see Sean with scratch marks or bruises.
And the affair between Kathy and Tim might not have been over after all.
That further raises the police's suspicions that something is up here.
For months, Kathy Stanek Cousins and Tim Coyle had been cheating on their spouses in an obsessive neighborhood affair. But their secret romance had been overshadowed by tragedy. When Kathy's husband Sean was found shot to death in a rural creek 100 miles away.
The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
When Sean disappeared a few days earlier, he'd taken a handgun with him. and Kathy feared he may be intending to commit suicide. But an autopsy revealed cause of death had been no accident.
The autopsy showed that there were 2 bullet wounds, one in the head and one in the stomach. And that's obviously a tip-off that there was some type of a homicide.
With their missing persons case turning into a murder, the Palm Beach police investigation kicked into high gear. But who would want Sean Cousins dead? The victim's spouse is often the first person homicide detectives look into. And in this case, the revelation that Kathy had been having an affair with the next-door neighbor made them especially interested in speaking with her again. And when police matched the slugs from Sean's body to Kathy's missing .45 caliber handgun, she began to look like an even more likely suspect. But when detectives contacted Kathy, she insisted that she had nothing to do with his death. She said they were working hard to reconcile, and had even gone on a few dates days before he went missing.
While we were waiting for our table, we walked through the store, and they have all those like really cute little cards and stuff. I had picked them out. And I'm sorry for the way I've been. I'm sorry for the way I've treated you. I realize I've ruined the love you had for me. I love you.
The cards Kathy showed investigators confirmed her story. And when police spoke to Sean's mother, she agreed that her son seemed desperate to make the marriage work, against her own advice.
Sean did not want to get divorced, even though people told him, end this marriage, it's not good anymore. I guess he really loved her.
But if Kathy and Sean were both trying to save their marriage, then who else might have wanted him dead? Police didn't have very far to look, since Kathy's affair made her former lover Tim Coyle the next logical suspect. But when detectives went next door to talk to Tim, he denied having anything to do with Sean's death.
He seems more concerned about his wife finding out that he's sleeping with the neighbor.
He was still denying it, and that he was just trying to be her friend. She just lost a husband. He was just brutally killed, and I was supposed to be this, sympathetic neighbor.
However, Tim did have a theory as to what might have happened to Sean Cousins. He told police there were rumors that the Jamaican Airlines pilot had been using his international flights to smuggle drugs. Police investigated Sean's flight records looking for any indication of illegal activity, but were unable to come up with anything to suggest Sean had been the victim of a drug deal gone wrong. Hoping to find new leads, detectives went to Sean's first wife and family, and what they had to tell police was eye-opening. Apparently, before his death, Sean had confided in them that his marriage to Kathy was even rockier than she'd admitted to police.
There was very many incidents told to me by the family where there was altercations between Sean and Kathy.
And according to Sean's family, Sean had told them that Kathy was always the one who assaulted him.
When she would get upset, she would actually attack Sean. Numerous times the family would say that they would see Sean with scratch marks or bruises.
Sean's family told detectives that the biggest fight of all had taken place the day Sean had come home early to catch Kathy and Tim together.
Sean came home and found Tim in the house. He tells Tim to leave the house. Tim refuses because he says, I'm here as a guest of Kathy, not of you. And then an altercation occurs between the two.
The two men had begun fighting, and that's when Kathy went and grabbed a gun from her bedroom and ordered Sean to leave her lover alone.
That only makes Sean angrier. There's a big standoff, and she tries to hold him off while she calls 911.
At some point, she hands the gun over to Tim to keep it on Sean while she's on the phone with the sheriff's office.
Sean was arrested for assault. Kathy quickly dropped the charges, but the damage had already been done. Sean's family told investigators that the incident had only made things between Sean and Kathy worse, and they were afraid that this time she might have finally gone through with her threat to kill him. Armed with this new information, Police paid Kathy a visit, but she flatly denied the family's accusations and made it clear she had no interest in assisting in their investigation.
When we meet her, she's in the company of an attorney, and at that point, the attorney plainly told us that she would not be talking to us.
Although Kathy was completely within her rights, detectives were surprised by her sudden change in attitude. Now, instead of a grieving widow, she looked more like a woman with something to hide.
A wife who loved her husband should be willing to talk to the police till the end of time to get to the bottom of this.
Kathy may not have been willing to help with the investigation, but when police canvassed the neighborhood, they finally got the break they've been looking for. A neighbor claimed she'd heard gunshots coming from the cousin's home on the night of the murder.
This alleged witness claimed that she heard gunshots in the middle of the night, which would have been the time that the alleged crime occurred.
The time of the gunshots matched the coroner's estimated time of death, which was enough for police to secure a warrant to search the cousin's home.
They thoroughly inspected the victim's home, and if there were 2 gunshots fired at close range, you would expect to find some evidence of that.
But they were unable to find any traces of violence. Investigators seemed to have hit a dead end. There was no physical evidence linking Kathy or Tim to Sean's death. But letters and emails recovered in the search of the cousin's home suggested that Kathy and Tim's affair might not have ended after all. They found numerous love letters and emails between the two, making it sound like Kathy was still very much in love with Tim.
She wanted to be with him and only him. She was tired of playing the happy little wife and wanted it resolved.
They were madly in love and were making plans to be together. So that further raises the police's suspicions. Wait a minute, something is up here.
The lovers' emails also contain links to websites that show Tim Coyle thought of himself as much more than just a mild-mannered satellite installer.
We found a website where he painted himself as Major Tim Coley, and he was experienced in urban warfare.
He considered himself a mercenary, that he was out to do whatever needed to be done in order to get the mission done.
However, detectives found no record of Tim Coyle holding a rank in any of these armed services. It seemed Tim was little more than a daydreamer role-playing on the internet.
He wanted to portray himself that he was a badass, so to speak.
Just painting himself somebody he was not.
But was it possible that Tim had decided to make his mercenary fantasies a reality? Could he have killed Sean in an attempt to have Kathy all to himself? Coming up, new evidence suggests a possible motive for the murder.
The insurance policy went from $500,000 to $1 million.
Kathy Stanek Cousins and Tim Coyle were 2 neighbors in the throes of an impassioned, adulterous affair. But when Kathy's husband Sean was found murdered, she and Tim had graduated from cheating spouses to possible murder suspects. Of particular interest to police was Tim's secret internet persona, where he billed himself as a deadly soldier of fortune.
He considered himself a mercenary. He was out to do whatever needed to be done.
But did that include killing his lover's husband? To find out, police decided to take a closer look at Tim Coyle, and they learned some suspicious information when they spoke with his wife, Deborah. Apparently, just a few days after Sean Cousins' murder, Tim had called his wife in a panic.
He had taken my van, and he told me he was buying pool chemicals. And so he calls me up, freaking out that chlorine spilled and that he has to rip the carpeting out of my brand new van.
Tim told Deborah he was taking the van to a local dealership to have the carpets replaced. Deborah agreed. But when the repair technician opened the back of the van, they immediately noticed something strange.
Carpet is gone. which they say usually people that want to replace their carpet, they don't tear the carpet up, they let the people do it.
And in the floorboards, the dealership technician discovered something even more troubling.
They also found traces of what appeared to be bloodstains.
That just was not sitting well with the dealership, and they called the police.
Palm Beach police immediately dispatched a team of forensic specialists to take the van into evidence and conduct a thorough search. They collected samples of blood found on the floorboards of the van and sent them to the crime lab for testing.
They were able to determine that the blood in that automobile was in fact the blood of Sean Cousins.
For detectives, the blood evidence was a major step forward in the case against Tim Coyle.
It put Sean Cousins in that van, either hurt, bleeding, or somewhere where his blood was transferred to.
But while blood splatter proved that Sean had been inside of Tim's van, it wasn't enough to prove that Tim had committed the murder. Police needed more evidence before they could make an arrest, and they found it in Tim's cell phone records. With the help of Tim's service provider, detectives were able to track Tim's whereabouts on the day Sean Cousins had disappeared.
That cell phone acts like a GPS. That was giving us a timeline where he was at what particular time.
And the GPS map created by Tim's phone showed that on that day, Tim had driven from Sean and Kathy's house all the way to the exact creek where Sean Cousins' body had been found.
They could now actually prove that Tim Coyle drove the body after the murder from West Palm Beach to Osceola County and dumped it.
Detectives knew the cell phone evidence, combined with the traces of blood, was enough to put Tim Coyle behind bars. But before making any arrests, they wanted to determine how much Kathy knew and whether she was involved as well.
Has she just been covering for Tim, or was she a part of this?
Once again, Tim's cell phone records provided a clue investigators hoped would unravel the rest of the story.
The number was being called up north to Chicago, right around that time frame where we suspect maybe the homicide occurred.
The phone number belonged to a friend of Tim's back in Chicago, a fellow self-styled soldier of fortune named Daniel Bakovic. Like Tim, Daniel billed himself on the internet as a deadly mercenary for hire. And in addition to their phone calls, the two men had also exchanged a chain of suspicious emails in the weeks leading up to Sean Cousins' murder.
There was some communication to Daniel Bakovic. I have a mission we have to do, just kind of like code for maybe what's really happening, and that's to cover up a homicide.
Detectives traveled to Chicago to find out what Daniel Bakovic had to say, and discovered he was more than willing to talk.
When we got there, he kind of said, hey, I figured someone would be finally contacting me about what's happening in Florida.
Daniel confirmed that Tim had tried to contract him to kill Sean Cousins. But Tim wasn't the one who was supposed to pay him. Kathy was.
Kathy's going to give him $500,000 after she cashes out her husband's $1 million life insurance policy.
It appeared the lovers had been just as motivated by greed as their obsessive love affair when they plotted to kill Sean Cousins.
$1 million is a lot of money, and that would be a motive for somebody to receive $1 million by killing someone.
Daniel told investigators that the plan was for him to ambush Sean while he and Kathy were at the movies.
Daniel Bakovic was supposed to kill Sean and made it look like a robbery.
But when it came time to fly to Florida, Daniel decided not to go through with it. He said he'd expected to receive an angry call from Tim, but didn't hear from him until more than 24 hours later, on the night of Sean Cousins' murder.
About 2:16 in the morning, Tim Coyle contacted him and on the phone, and he's kind of excited. He said, I can't believe she did it. And I need you down here now. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then all of a sudden he abruptly said, I'll call you back.
Tim never called back, but Daniel had assumed that the she Tim was referring to was Kathy Stanek Cousins. And and she'd gotten tired of waiting for Daniel to show up and kill Sean.
That's what he interpreted, that it was Kathy who had killed Sean Cousins.
Between the evidence of the undying love affair between Kathy and Tim, the blood traces found in Tim's car, and the testimony of Daniel Bakovic, detectives had enough to arrest the lovers for the murder of Sean Cousins. But even behind bars, Kathy and Tim both continued to claim their innocence. And with no direct physical evidence tying Kathy to the crime, investigators knew their best shot at convictions was to get the lovers to turn on one another. They decided to try their luck with Tim first.
They had a stronger case against Tim. They had the blood in the van. They had some of his email correspondence to the mercenary up in Chicago.
Sensing he was poised to take the fall for the murder, Tim finally cracked and agreed to cut a deal with prosecutors.
We spoke to the prosecutor, and Mr. Coyle decided that it was in his best interest to perhaps take an offer from the state.
Tim agreed to plead guilty to a 10-year manslaughter charge in exchange for his testimony against Kathy Cousins.
With his plea deal in place, Tim confessed that he and Kathy had enlisted Daniel Bakovic's help in killing Sean. Their reason, to get Kathy's husband out of the picture so he and Kathy could finally be together.
We know now that was the motive. Her wanting to live the rest of her life with Tim. Sean's out of the way, and they've got $1 million policy.
But when Daniel didn't follow through with their plan, Kathy had gotten impatient, as Tim discovered after receiving an urgent text message later that night.
It's from Kathy, and it just says for him to come over quick.
Tim said he rushed over to Kathy's house and found her in the garage. She was standing over Sean with a gun.
Sean had been shot in the stomach and was bleeding.
Tim said Kathy tried to get him to finish the job. But despite Tim's claims of being a mercenary, he said he couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger.
She gave him the gun to finish it off, but he chickened out.
However, Kathy had no problem doing it herself.
Mrs. Cousins shot her husband in the head.
Tim told police that at first, he was horrified to witness Sean's murder. But he also realized that Kathy had done what they both agreed was necessary. She'd killed Sean to keep their love alive. And as his adrenaline kicked in, his shock quickly turned to lust.
Sean was dying or dead in the garage. They had wine, and then they had celebration sex, and this is the people that they were dealing with there.
Tim could have called the police, but instead, they both chose to be sexual together. It was like sealing their fate together. They were partners in this crime.
They were cementing and solidifying the fact that they could finally be together without any interruption. But it is the sickest way to do that.
And after the couple made love, Tim said they loaded Sean's body into Tim's van.
They drove until they found a desolate area where no one would hopefully find the body, and that's where they dumped it.
It was a shocking story, and fit with the circumstantial evidence the prosecutors had already assembled against the couple. But would Tim's testimony alone be enough to convict Kathy? Or would the lack of hard proof against the cheating widow lead to her acquittal? Coming up, as Kathy's murder trial gets underway, the state's case looks like it may crumble under scrutiny.
They didn't find any forensics. They didn't have the weapon. All they had was the wife having an affair.
When Kathy Stanek Cousins fell in love with her handsome next-door neighbor, Tim Coyle, she thought she'd finally found the passion and excitement that had been missing from her life. But the clandestine affair had come to a shocking end when Tim confessed to helping Kathy kill her husband. And she found herself on the hook for murder. On May 19th, 2003, Kathy's murder trial began. Prosecutors argued she'd killed her husband for both love and greed.
She wanted $1 million of life insurance proceeds. She wanted to get rid of her husband, and she sought to accomplish both in one fell swoop.
Kathy's defense insisted that the state couldn't prove their charge of first-degree murder. They had no hard evidence to prove Tim's story that Kathy shot and killed her husband in their garage.
So it would have been some type of blood splatter, even a tiny amount. Forensics would have picked it up. So they didn't have that, they didn't have the weapon. All they had was the wife having an affair.
But the state believed that Tim's willingness to implicate himself in the murder proved he was telling the truth.
From the defense perspective, we will argue that their truth is whatever they need to find somebody guilty. I think in this case, they had to make an evaluation. Did his testimony, was it consistent with the physical evidence that they did have and the circumstantial evidence that they did have? And they ultimately made the call that it did.
Throughout the trial, Kathy appeared calm and confident until her lover was called to the stand.
I'm sure it was devastating for her. Tim sort of lives up to his own created persona. He treated this love affair as a mercenary would. You know, he put himself first and sold Kathy out.
The jury hung on every word as Tim Coyle described Sean's desperate final moments, as well as the lusty celebration that followed his murder.
His testimony just tied up the whole case and gave the jury an eyewitness account in very graphic terms.
It left little room for the jury to see Kathy as anything more than a cold-blooded killer who showed no remorse. But as the jury deliberated, Tim's plea bargain gave them cause for concern. He would only spend 10 years in prison, which left them reluctant to give his co-conspirator a more severe sentence.
The jury knows that he's going to get X amount, and they may feel, why should we give her that much more? So I believe that's what they took into consideration.
So instead of first-degree murder, they shocked everyone by finding Kathy guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter.
She got 15 years in prison.
It was a surprisingly light sentence for those who believed Kathy had executed her husband in cold blood. And while his killers had been brought to justice, Sean Cousins' family believed Kathy deserved a stronger punishment for committing the ultimate act of betrayal.
The family wanted to see Kathy go away for life for orchestrating such a heinous crime.
It's crossing a line. It's just letting your emotions take over and not worrying about the consequences in that moment.
In the end, Kathy's passion and greed destroyed more than just one life. It also destroyed the lives of everyone around her. A harsh reality that Tim's ex-wife Deborah Coyle has to face every day.
I loved him, but I was betrayed by him. You know, I remember the man that I thought I married, that I loved, and that wasn't him. If she never came into our lives, none of this obviously would have happened.
Before she became the focus of national headlines, she was simply Kelsey Barrett, a young mother from Colorado.
She was able to smile on her face. Patrick was the father of Kelsey's daughter.
He was a good-looking cowboy.
It was really a whirlwind type of romance.
But a mysterious disappearance would change everything.
It's been several days since anybody's heard from her.
She's not the kind of person that is unpredictable or, just disappears for a while.
The investigation would capture media attention around the world.
Someone knows where she's at. We won't quit looking. Where do you go? Where do you begin?
As police search for answers, they ultimately uncover a treacherous web of lust and deception.
He was her first love, and I don't think she ever lost that love.
He led her on for years while she just fell into his trap.
Now, 8 months after this infamous case came to a close, The friends, colleagues, and investigators who had a front row seat tell their side of the story.
It was a shocking moment to sit there and listen to what happened.
This is something that nobody would see outside of a haunted house.
It just hit me like a brick. I was just heartbroken.
I did not see that coming. As you can probably hear an audible gasp coming from the courtroom.
Fear can lead you to do things you wouldn't do otherwise.
Nestled in the heart of Washington State, the town of Moses Lake is a small, peaceful community where no one's a stranger, and neighbors look out for one another. One of those neighbors was Kelsey Barrett.
Kelsey was raised in the Moses Lake area on a farm. She really liked farming and the farm lifestyle growing up. She was a fun-loving girl. She was actually my son's first babysitter when he was probably 3 or 4 years old. We trusted her because she was very responsible.
She was a compassionate, caring person, quiet, not a real outgoing person, but very quiet and calm.
After years of watching planes fly over her parents' farm, Kelsey set her sights on a career in aviation and enrolled in pilot training courses at a school near her Washington home.
Kelsey attended the aviation program here at Big Bend Community College.
She got her private pilot's license. She ultimately was working as a flight instructor.
She was just an expert at what she did. She took a lot of pride in being a pilot. There was always a smile on her face.
Despite her success in aviation, Kelsey felt something was missing in her life.
Kelsey had a desire to live a ranching life, raise a family, raise kids.
Unfortunately, the pretty 27-year-old struggled to find the time to date due to her hectic work schedule. So in 2016, Kelsey turned to the internet for help.
She found an online dating site that was predominantly for individuals looking for partners who had common interest in the farming, ranching community.
It was there that Kelsey met a rancher from Colorado named Patrick Frazee.
Patrick was a good-looking cowboy, even though he hated the term. He wanted to be called a cattleman. Patrick and I were together on and off from 2011 to 2015. I met him through mutual friends. He would open a door. He was a very gentleman. He was very old school. He called himself the last of a dying breed. I was just so impressed with how he read between the lines and could read people. He was just fascinating.
It was Patrick's devotion to both the rural life and his family that had impressed Kelsey Barrett the most when they first met online.
Him and his mom were very close. They lived together up in Florissant on the ranch.
Both Patrick and Kelsey had a background in farming. That was one of the things that attracted them to each other.
They would speak on the phone. They would talk online. And it wasn't until spring of 2016 that they actually met in person, face to face. And that's when Patrick went and met Kelsey and met Kelsey's family.
The meeting went so well that Patrick convinced Kelsey to move to Colorado to be closer to him.
It was really a whirlwind type of romance. It was May of 2016 that Kelsey is engaged to Patrick.
Both Kelsey's mom and dad, and even her brother, were a bit taken back on how quickly this relationship developed. But if this is what Kelsey wanted, then they were supportive of that.
Ultimately, Kelsey buys a condo in Woodland Park. She gets a job in Grand Junction as a flight instructor.
And in 2017, Patrick and Kelsey prepared to take another big step together as parents.
So about a year after Kelsey moved out there, they have a little girl, and they were going to start up a full family with this young girl.
She was always excited just to talk about her daughter. She was so proud of her, and she'd have pictures of her on her phone.
Kelsey was passionate about flying. She was becoming very passionate about motherhood, and she was off to a really good start.
But on December 2nd, 2018, Kelsey Barrett's dreams for the future are suddenly interrupted when Woodland Park, Colorado police receive an out-of-state call from Kelsey's mom.
She hadn't talked to her daughter since Thanksgiving, 10 days prior, which was not normal. She usually talked to her daughter quite often.
Kelsey's mom had last physically spoken with Kelsey on November 22nd, about 9 o'clock in the morning. Kelsey's mom texted Patrick, asking Patrick, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with Kelsey. Have you heard from her? In response, Patrick phoned Kelsey's mom and told Kelsey's mother at that time that he and Kelsey were no longer a couple.
Patrick had seemed surprised that Kelsey had not reached out and told her mother about the breakup.
He said that they had agreed to go their separate ways.
They exchanged custody of the baby on Thanksgiving in the alleyway area of her condo. And that's the last that he saw of Kelsey.
Woodland Park officers assure Kelsey's mother that they'll attempt to reach out to her, but they're not ready to file a missing persons report just yet.
A lot of people wander off on their own. You know, adults are free to do what they want in regards to that. Generally, before we start with a missing person case, we go where they're last seen and try to see if they're still there.
They went out to the condo where Kelsey lived, and when they got there, her cars were still parked out front.
They went, knocked on Kelsey's door. No answer.
Out of an abundance of caution, officers have the condo's manager let them into Kelsey's unit.
They go into her condo, and everything looks fairly normal. Nothing really looks amiss.
Officers begin to wonder if Kelsey took a trip to clear her head following her breakup with Patrick. But the more they search her condo, the less adds up.
We did not locate any keys for any vehicles, which is odd with the vehicles being parked right outside the door. Her luggage being there, stuff like that. It's kind of brought a red flag.
Taken in the context of Kelsey's recent breakup, officers realize there's cause for concern.
We still didn't know what happened to Kelsey, if she went off, if she was suicidal, any of that. So we brought in the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to help investigate this.
Coming up, as investigators search for answers, surveillance footage provides police with their first lead.
That was the last picture that we have of Kelsey and her daughter.
But her family uncovers an ominous piece of evidence.
Her brother noticed blood.
It's December 2nd, 2018. 10 days since anyone has heard from 29-year-old flight instructor Kelsey Barrett. Inside Kelsey's condo, detectives have found few clues suggesting her whereabouts. A receipt in the kitchen indicates that she had visited a local grocery store 10 days prior, the last day she spoke with her mother by phone.
There was a receipt dated the 22nd of November where Kelsey had bought a poinsettia and bought some other things. So based on that, went over to this grocery store and found the surveillance video of Kelsey on the 22nd going into the store with her daughter.
She was seen there on surveillance with a baby carrier and her child in that, kind of in the noon to 12:30 range.
And that was the last picture that we have of Kelsey and her daughter on Thanksgiving.
Investigators post a statewide Be on the Lookout bulletin with Kelsey's description. They also sit down with Kelsey's family to learn more about her.
I then conduct a fairly lengthy interview with Kelsey's mother and brother and got a lot of information about Kelsey.
Detectives ask Kelsey's family about her relationship with her former fiancé, 30-year-old Patrick Frazee. Kelsey's family reiterates that they were surprised when Patrick told them he and Kelsey had broken up, but they admit that the couple's relationship had been unusual.
Kelsey wanted to have a life with Patrick. She wanted to raise a family with Patrick. But she would have conversations with her mom about things aren't really working out the way she had hoped.
Patrick, being that rancher, wanted to be on their property, which is about 35 acres in Florissant. His mother lives there too. And Kelsey, from what we've heard, did not want to live in that house with his mother. Probably wants her own privacy.
Patrick and Kelsey never lived together under the same roof.
It was an interesting arrangement that Patrick and Kelsey had. When Kelsey would go to work, Patrick would take the baby. And then when Kelsey would get back from work, Kelsey would come pick up the baby.
Here she is, a brand new mother, flying several times a day. It took a toll on Kelsey. She was very fatigued, but Kelsey was, determined to make the relationship work.
Kelsey's family also insists that even if she and Patrick had problems, she never abandoned her baby daughter.
This is just not a person who's going to walk away from her baby. She's just not going to walk away from this life.
That same afternoon, detectives make contact with Kelsey's fiancé at the ranch he shares with his mother in Florissant, Colorado.
Law enforcement at this point is trying to get information from Patrick, really to get kind of a timeline from him.
He said the night before Thanksgiving, they had a long talk, kind of a heart-to-heart, and that she is the one that decided she wants to go a different way. She's not happy with this, and the word he uses is arrangement, and just wanted to change the scenery.
He tells the Woodland Park Police, I returned the keys to her house, that we meet in the parking lot of her house, that I don't even go to the door or inside her house, and he takes the baby and leaves. He then said that over the next few days, they communicated either by text or phone, primarily by text, but that Sunday was the last time that he had any communication with her.
When detectives ask Patrick for more details regarding his whereabouts during the time Kelsey disappeared, his attitude noticeably shifts.
At that point, Patrick declined to provide a statement or an interview to police without an attorney being present.
Detectives submit a warrant for both Patrick and Kelsey's phone records. They also ask Kelsey's cell phone provider to verify her last known location.
The phone company did ping the phone and found that the last time Kelsey's phone connected to a network was on November 25th in Gooding, Idaho.
Gooding, Idaho is about 800 miles away.
Well, that was strange. That was strange to everyone. There was no reason for Kelsey to go to southern Idaho.
Could she possibly have left with someone? Was she taken? Those were certainly things that we were strategizing about.
Based on the fact that Kelsey is a pilot, those closest to the case begin to wonder if she could have flown to Idaho without telling anyone.
The first thought in my mind was she involved in an accident? Maybe, just flying, not with the company, but on her own time.
That particular area of Idaho does have some rough terrain. There was assistance through the Gooding Sheriff's Department to go out and search for any signs of Kelsey or her cell phone. Those were undertaken and they were all unsuccessful.
2 days later, detectives are still plotting their next steps when Kelsey's family contacts them with disturbing news.
Kelsey's brother and mother had been staying in Kelsey's residence while they were here.
Her brother was in the bathroom, looked down, and noticed blood on the toilet.
At that time, Kelsey's mother and brother were removed from the home. We got a search warrant and went back into the house.
The crime scene analyst from CBI used a chemical that can detect the presence of blood that the human eye cannot see. They applied the chemical throughout the bathroom and it popped for the presence of blood.
It was on the toilet. It was also on the sink. It was on the wall. It was on the bathtub. At this point, I would say that everybody knew something terrible had happened to Kelsey.
Coming up, a plea from Kelsey's family triggers progress in the case.
This is completely out of character. Someone knows where she's at.
And phone records unveil a new person of interest.
Why is he calling that number? Who is that?
2 weeks after Kelsey Barrett's disappearance on Thanksgiving Day 2018, police have uncovered substantial blood evidence inside her home. Growing more concerned that Kelsey might have been abducted, or worse, police turned to the media for help.
Good afternoon. I'm Chief Miles DeYoung, Chief of Police for the City of Woodland Park.
We had decided that it was now time for Kelsey's mother to make an appeal to the community.
I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about Kelsey. She's not the kind that runs off. This is completely out of character.
Following the advice of police, Kelsey's mother refrains from mentioning the blood found in Kelsey's condo.
My hope was that through this press conference that someone out there may have seen something if foul play was involved. And quite frankly, I knew by the press conference that foul play was involved, that events had taken place that led me to believe that Kelsey was severely injured or dead.
Someone knows where she's at. Kelsey, we just want you home. Call us if you can, and we won't quit looking.
It really seemed like the story went pretty big pretty fast. We figured that would help. You know, if a lot of people were hearing about the story, hopefully someone would be able to help solve the case.
Finally, 21 days after Kelsey was reported missing, detectives get a promising clue.
One of Kelsey's neighbors had a security camera that looked out, and it actually would catch the front door of Kelsey's condo, just the way it was positioned.
When Motion sets off this camera, it sends an email to the whatever email you register with, and you can look and see, hey, is this something I should be concerned with, yes or no? So when you do that, it saves that image in the phone.
As detectives review the images from Thanksgiving Day, they come to a startling realization.
They saw some images captured at the front door of Kelsey's condo, and you could see Kelsey, you could see the baby, and you could see Patrick at the front door of Kelsey's condo. That was directly in contradiction to what Patrick had told law enforcement, that he had exchanged the child in the alley at Kelsey's condo on Thanksgiving.
Is it possible Patrick had been confused when he told police he and Kelsey had exchanged custody in the condo's alley? Or had he intentionally misled detectives about what really happened?
At that point, they wanted to speak with Patrick. He had retained a lawyer. We had attempted to reach out to that lawyer to have him present, and we were told that he would not be participating in the interviews.
Patrick's refusal to cooperate certainly raises detectives' suspicions, so police obtain a warrant to search Patrick's property.
They went over there to Florissant, cut the lock, seized the property, and searched his ranch.
They're looking for anything they can find that may lead to her whereabouts, may lead to what happened to her. But where do you go? Where do you begin? We're talking hundreds of acres of land.
Inside Patrick's office, detectives notice something that immediately raises red flags.
Patrick has outlined in a folder that they found images that he himself obtained from a bank's ATM camera. And he has lined up evidence that he himself collected to provide an alibi or a timeline of November 22nd.
It indicated that when he picked up his daughter from Kelsey at a little after noon, then went to run errands, went to the Walmart, then went to deposit checks, I believe, then from depositing checks, traveled to check on some of his cattle.
But when detectives compare Patrick's notes to his cell phone records, they paint a much different story.
He actually, in that little alibi letter, says that he was out working with and feeding cattle at 4:30. His phone is not at any of those ranches. His phone is in Woodland Park.
This puts Patrick in Kelsey's neighborhood 4 hours after he told police they parted ways. So what was he doing there?
Several of us started looking at incoming, outgoing phone calls Patrick made and received from his cell phone.
He calls his mom, and then he calls a 208 area code. 208 area code is Idaho. Kelsey's phone last pinged in Idaho. There's significance there. Why is he calling that number? Who is that?
So they get the FBI involved. They make a few calls, and they figure out that that phone number belongs to Crystal Kenny Lee.
I think everybody was, who is this person? How is she connected to Patrick?
Of course, you start thinking, is there an affair happening?
Police can't help but wonder, if Patrick had been cheating with Crystal Kenny Lee, did their affair have something to do with Kelsey's disappearance?
Because Kelsey was missing, time was of the essence, and went ahead and called Crystal's phone on speakerphone. I identified myself, said I was trying to find out what happened to Kelsey Barrett, and that I understood Kelsey had a relationship with Patrick, and we could see that Patrick and Crystal had communicated with each other. And I think her first statement to me is, I have known Patrick since 2006, we're business partners, and he's a friend. So then her second statement to me was, I have no idea who Kelsey Barrett is.
Crystal was a registered nurse working at a local hospital in Twin Falls, Idaho. She was involved in the local rodeo scene in Twin Falls.
I asked her, when's the last time she spoke with Patrick? And she said on Thanksgiving Day, Crystal had decided to come down to Colorado to Florissant, wanting to sell her half of a horse to Patrick. She arrived in Florissant Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and met with Patrick.
Crystal claims that the business deal had ended up falling through and that she had returned home the same day.
She got back in her car and drove the 13 hours back home to Twin Falls.
But FBI agents are skeptical of Crystal's story.
Crystal was really minimizing any relationship or contact she had with Patrick. She was supposedly willing to drive 26 hours to meet with him for only 3.5 hours. She was not upset a business deal didn't come through. And then the huge coincidence of her even telling us that she traveled the same time as Kelsey's phone, and Kelsey's phone just being a couple of miles from her house, was too much.
We felt that there was a significant need to meet with Crystal face-to-face and talk with her.
Coming up, detectives uncover evidence of a shocking conspiracy.
Patrick had a huge hold on Crystal, and I believe that she fell under his spell.
Nearly a month after the disappearance of Kelsey Barrett, her fiancé Patrick Frazee has been linked to a woman named Crystal Kenny Lee, who lives in Twin Falls, Idaho, only a few miles away from where Kelsey's cell phone last pinged.
It was decided law enforcement is going to go out and they are going to meet with Crystal at her house in Idaho.
Special Agent Grusing and I sat down with Crystal and basically told her that, Crystal, we know you're not telling the truth. We have evidence of that. And this was the time for her to get in front of this. She appeared to be nervous.
Crystal says, I will tell you everything, but I want to talk to a lawyer first.
Because she had invoked her rights, asked for an attorney, there was no further questioning.
Detectives leave, convinced it will be days before they hear from Crystal's attorney. But just an hour later, they receive a surprising tip.
I got a phone call from people in my office saying that a friend of Crystal's had called in with pertinent information.
Detectives reach out to Crystal's friend. Right away, she brings a startling new perspective to the case.
It was through the conversation with Crystal's friend that we learned that Crystal was more than a business partner with Patrick, that Patrick was Crystal's first love.
Crystal's always been infatuated with horses, her livestock. And I think that's one thing that drove her to meet Patrick. After high school, she went to Colorado. She was working at a dude ranch, met Patrick Frazee.
When she first met Patrick, she was very attracted to him and thought he was just a nice guy that was squared away and had his act together. And from that meeting, they did have a little bit of a relationship.
It was a very complicated, complex relationship. They would stop dating. She would go back to her life in Idaho. She would move on in a different direction, and then they would rekindle their romance. And that pattern continued for many, many years.
According to her friend, Crystal knew Patrick would never fully commit to her. Over the years, she did her best to build a life away from him.
She started to date someone else, and so she gets married. You would think that would be the end of this relationship between Crystal and Patrick, but it's not. They still would contact each other from time to time, and there would be what I can only describe as flare-ups in this relationship.
Patrick was her first love, and I don't think she ever lost that love for Patrick. Even when they would be off again, and she would see him when they would be back on again, she would get the same feeling she saw when she first saw him.
At a certain point, Crystal's husband finds out about this affair, and they get divorced.
She starts to think that she's going to move to Colorado to be with Patrick.
But there's one part of the equation that Crystal hadn't counted on. Kelsey Barrett.
Crystal didn't know that Patrick was involved with anybody else. She didn't even know about the child.
Crystal is very conflicted. She loves Patrick, and she confronts him.
Patrick then begins to tell Crystal that Kelsey is a terrible mother. She's a drug addict. She's an alcoholic. She's physically abusive to the baby.
Patrick asked her, the only way that we can be together, you need to save my daughter's life, is through getting rid of Kelsey.
At that point, Crystal had confided in her friend and told her that Patrick had been soliciting her to kill Kelsey.
It's a stunning revelation and leaves detectives even more eager to speak to Crystal Kenny Lee and her attorney.
We get the name and the phone number of the lawyer, and I told him, this is your one chance. If your client wants to come forward, we'll give her a plea bargain to testify.
Surprisingly, Crystal agrees, and on December 20th, she sits down with detectives and opens up about her relationship with Patrick Frazee.
So ultimately, Crystal agrees to come in and meet with law enforcement and provide a full account of everything that she knows.
When detectives confront Crystal about her friend's statement, she admits that Patrick had started talking about killing Kelsey in September 2018.
She tells us that she never had any intentions of harming Kelsey. She's saying, I can't do this. He keeps trying to guilt her with the fact that this is going to be your fault if my daughter dies. So she breaks off communication with Patrick for a couple of weeks.
Crystal says she hadn't thought Patrick would follow through with hurting Kelsey. But that changed on the night of November 22nd, when she received a text from Patrick out of the blue.
He texts her, "We need to talk." When she calls back, Patrick tells Crystal, "You have a mess to clean up. You need to get out here right away, and you need to come prepared."
Crystal, she didn't know exactly what had happened, but she could guess. The next day, she drove 11 hours overnight to get to Woodland Park. And she walks into Kelsey's condo and she sees a mess. She works in a hospital, so she's used to seeing blood. But this is something that nobody would see outside of a haunted house. This is a bloody, smeared crime scene.
She cleans up blood. She also takes several items that she can't clean because it's either cloth. She doesn't have time to wash these things in a washer. So she collects a lot of these things, puts them in trash bags, and puts them in the trunk of her car.
After she finished cleaning up Kelsey's condo, Crystal says she met up with Patrick at his ranch. There, he disclosed exactly what he had done to Kelsey Barrett.
On Thanksgiving Day, Patrick lures Kelsey over to her own house. Under the guise of a romantic surprise, he says, "Hey, I want you to guess the scent of these candles that I got. I'm gonna blindfold you. I want you to smell these and see if you can figure out what the scent is." And she trusts him, and she thinks that she's about to lean in and smell a candle.
While Kelsey was sniffing candles to determine the scent, Patrick began beating Kelsey with a bat. All while their daughter was in a room off the living room of where this event took place.
And he didn't kill her instantly. She suffered. Because at a certain point, she said, "Please stop." And those were the last words that Kelsey said.
Patrick loads Kelsey's remains in a plastic tote, puts her in the back of his truck, and puts his daughter in the truck, then drove to his house to have Thanksgiving dinner with his family.
All the while, Kelsey's body is in this black tote box in the back of his pickup truck.
Detectives pressed Crystal about why she would help Patrick after learning he had committed such a heinous act.
A big question was, why are you doing all this? We asked her that on a number of occasions, and she would continually repeat. She goes, she loved him.
Patrick was Crystal's first love. She told us that, and that he had power over her. She was in love with him, but also afraid of him.
Out of fear, she cooperates rather than going to the police and saying, he needs help, Kelsey needs help. There's these threats, and fear can lead you to do things you wouldn't do otherwise.
Patrick meets up with Crystal. They get into Patrick's truck, picked up some gasoline along the way. He goes over there with Crystal and sets the tote on fire and burns the body inside the plastic tote.
He convinces her to take Kelsey's purse and Kelsey's phone and that gun back to Idaho with her. She drives back to Idaho that night. The fire is still going at Patrick's property when she leaves. It was a shocking moment to sit there and listen to Crystal outline what Patrick did. It opened the floodgates to this case.
We suspected that Kelsey was dead. We suspected Patrick was involved, but I can honestly say that caused me to take a step back. I didn't expect her death to be the way it was.
Crystal Kenny Lee was ultimately charged with tampering with evidence, which is a felony.
On December 21st, 2018, Patrick Frazee is taken into custody at his property in Florissant.
Today we arrested Patrick Frazee on charges of first-degree murder of Kelsey Barrett, and he is currently being held in the Teller County Jail. Our work is just beginning.
Coming up, as Patrick's trial date approaches, authorities uncover explosive new evidence.
He wrote in notes, "Help me, man, help me, please. My life depends on it."
I did not see that come. It was a complete and utter surprise. You can hear an audible gasp.
In Woodland Park, Colorado, Patrick Frazee is in custody for the brutal murder of his fiancée, Kelsey Barrett. His co-conspirator and secret lover, Crystal Kenny Lee, is cooperating with detectives to bring more evidence against Patrick.
After the arrest was effected, we were going to have Crystal point out certain things on Patrick's property.
Where Kelsey might be located was our prime objective.
Can you walk us to where you parked and what you did after you parked?
This is where the aluminum top was, and this is where the burn occurred.
As Crystal took us up to where the burn pit was, it was painfully obvious that there was a discoloration in the dirt. That area was subsequently excavated by the evidence response team from the FBI, and that's where we did find remnants of a burn site, along with what would later be determined to be a tooth fragment.
The tooth was confirmed to be human tooth. We were able to confirm that there was female DNA present on the tooth, but there was not enough to develop a profile to say, yes, this is specific, this person's DNA.
Detectives also asked Crystal to walk through Kelsey's condo in Woodland Park.
Can you point to the area where you saw and clean blood up on the wall?
It was the spray was from here all the way. I had to clean up underneath here, and it was all down here.
On November 1st, 2019, Patrick Frazee's trial begins in a Teller County courtroom.
There's discussions with Crystal's attorney that Crystal will be pleading guilty to tampering with evidence in exchange for an agreement to testify and cooperate fully in the case.
Crystal's testimony was very, very important. I think it was information certainly that the jury wanted to hear.
Patrick was also very intently listening to what Crystal was saying, and it almost looked like his eyes were trying to intimidate her into stopping talking, but Crystal never looked at him anyways.
At this point, prosecutors know that Crystal's credibility plays a big part in winning their case. But 6 days into the trial, an astonishing new piece of evidence comes forward.
Prosecutors are contacted by this former Teller County inmate and his attorney, saying that he has saved notes that Patrick Frazee wrote to him while they were in the Teller County jail.
He tells the court that Patrick Frazee, weeks before the trial was set to take place, he wanted his gang members to take care of and dispose of multiple witnesses tied to the investigation, including Kelsey's own mother, including investigators, including witnesses. He had names and identifying information on multiple people, and he wrote in notes, on handwritten notes, on napkins, toilet paper, anything that he could. Help me, man, help me, please. My life depends on it. My little girl's life depends on it. He asked this criminal, who he had never met before, to kill and dispose of multiple witnesses before this trial.
I did not see that coming. It was a complete and utter surprise. You could probably hear an audible gasp coming from the courtroom because these notes really reveal that he's willing to go to some extreme lengths to kill people, to protect himself.
With written proof of Patrick Frazee's intent for murder, prosecutors have all they need to convince a jury that he is guilty on all charges.
Patrick was convicted of first-degree murder and felony murder. He was also convicted of 3 counts of solicitation to commit murder. As a result of those convictions, Patrick was sentenced to life in the Department of Corrections without the possibility of parole, plus 156 years.
I think Patrick ranks up there as being one of the most evil people in my 37 years in law enforcement I'd ever come across. Like many devious criminals, he's got the ability to manipulate people.
In exchange for her cooperation, on January 28, 2020, Crystal Kenny Lee receives a reduced sentence of 3 years in prison.
We did a deal with the devil. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, and I'm not proud of that. But there's no question that Kelsey wouldn't have had the sure justice today without making that deal with the devil.
Is there ever really true fairness in the sentencing of Crystal? It's almost impossible for me to say. But what I can say is that without Crystal, we wouldn't have had any of the evidence that we had against Patrick that was critical in his conviction.
Patrick had huge hold on Crystal. And I believe with Crystal that she fell kind of under his spell. She's a good, kind person who got caught up in a situation that was just so unfortunate for both her and Kelsey and everybody involved.
Knowing Kelsey brought it closer to home, and we felt the pain that the family was going through. I think Kelsey will be remembered for her compassion, her caring, her drive. When she wanted to do something, she was able to have the determination to do whatever she set her mind to.